Back in that time, the different busts and sculptures would end up having cracks or nicks or imperfections in them. Some of them did not. But for the collectors, the owners of them, at times they would put wax where those cracks were and then try to pass it off as a whole as they covered the cracks. They tried to scrape with that wax, and then they tried to sell it as if it was flawless, it was perfect, there were no imperfections at all, as it was covered with wax and embellished and not anything like what they said that it was. Now, with a sculpture or a bust that didn't have cracks, they would stamp on the bottom of it, sincere, true blue all the way through. And let me say this, inconsistency, inside outside, will always lead to collapse. Inconsistency, inside outside, someone that is one thing on Sunday morning in front of people, church, I'm putting on that mask, but on the inside, carnal as the day is long, sinful, not wanting anything to do with the Lord, hollow almost on the inside. Inconsistency always leads to a collapse.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Rosedale Baptist Church Online. Our verse-by-verse teaching ministry exists to help every believer grow at every stage of their spiritual journey. Today, we are walking with Jesus through the book of Mark, and we are believing that this message meets you right where you are. Whether you are just beginning to explore who Jesus is, or you have been following him for years, there is something here for you. Now let's dive into this week's message.
Picking up kind of where we left off last week, the only caveat is Palm Sunday, we reached forward and taught verse 1 through 11. And so the Hosanna in the highest, the palm branches, the garments in the street. And so we're not going to repeat that today, but just keep in mind, he's entering Jerusalem today, and he gives us three events that are seemingly unrelated until you realize that overarching theme. They seem like they're unrelated. It's the fig tree, it's the temple, it's the disciples. The fig tree, the temple, and the disciples. And so let's look at it for a minute in verse number 12. And on the morrow, when they were come from Bethany, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree afar off, having leaves, from a distance, it looked right. He came, if haply he might find anything thereon, and when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves. From a distance, it seemed right, but up close and personal, there was something wrong. Nothing but leaves, for the time of the figs were not yet. And Jesus answered and said unto it, No man eat fruit of thee hereafter forever. And his disciples heard it. Look down to verse number 19. And when even was come, he went out of the city, and in the morning, as they passed by, they saw the fig tree dried up from the roots. And Peter, calling to remembrance, saith to him, Master, behold, the fig tree which thou cursest is withered away. And it seems like overkill at first, until you realize that overarching theme, that underlying truth that he's teaching us with these three events side by side. Second one, verse 16, 17, 15, whatever verse you want to look at, feel free to look at it. I'm going to look at verse number 15. So, and they came to Jerusalem, and Jesus went into the temple, fig tree, temple, and began to cast out them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers and the seats of them that sold doves. Look at 17. And he taught, saying unto them, Is it not written, my house shall be called of all nations the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves. And the scribes and chief priests, when they heard it, they were astonished at his doctrine. And of course, in verse number 22, we have that third vignette, that third event, side by side, teaching us about integrity. Having the inside the same as what you present on the outside. Integrity. Someone may use the word sincerity. Sincerity being true blue all the way through. A genuineness, not having the inside and the outside in conflict. And I think that it's a positive side of that negative hypocrisy. Hypocrisy, it means literally wearing a mask, putting on a mask. In the Greek plays, they would have the same person play multiple roles. They would just go back behind the scenes and put on a different mask. Same person, same inside, same person, but a totally different part that they were playing, they were presenting, they were parading in front of the people. Hypocrisy is to wear a mask. Nothing changed on the inside. And it's the opposite of what we're talking about today, sincerity. Sincerity. Back in that time, the different busts and sculptures would end up having cracks or nicks or imperfections in them. Some of them did not. But for the collectors, the owners of them, at times they would put wax where those cracks were and then try to pass it off as a whole as they covered the cracks. They tried to scrape with that wax, and then they tried to sell it as if it was flawless, it was perfect, there were no imperfections at all, as it was covered with wax and embellished and not anything like what they said that it was. Now, with a sculpture or a bust that didn't have cracks, they would stamp on the bottom of it, sincere, true blue all the way through. And let me say this, inconsistency, inside, outside, will always lead to collapse. Inconsistency, inside, outside, someone that is one thing on Sunday morning in front of people, church, I'm putting on that mask, but on the inside, carnal as the day is long, sinful, not wanting anything to do with the Lord, hollow almost on the inside. Inconsistency always leads to a collapse. I think the biggest one that was publicized when I first got saved, maybe it was before that, but it was the Jimmy Swaggart and the Jim Bakker. That they're one thing on the outside, but on the inside, come to find out, publicized across the nation. But it's not limited to televangelists, okay? It's not just that one sect that struggles without. You can look almost at any brand of religion and see examples of houses of cards that crumble to the ground. Whether you look at the Lutherans or the Presbyterians, obviously the Catholics, and even the Bible, the community type church, and the Baptists, whether it's a progressive Baptist or a fundamental Baptist or a conservative Baptist. Hey, when the inside is not what's presented on the outside, inconsistency always leads to collapse. And oh yeah, by the way, before someone thinks Christianity has a corner on this market, politics is fraught with people that present themselves one way and then come to find out they're not like anything like what they present on the outside. On the inside, they're a mess. Even personally, growing up, just think back about teachers maybe that you had in school, or maybe a friend, maybe even a best friend, where you thought that they presented themselves as, but come to find out, how many sons and daughters adored their dads, thought that they were a perfect parent, must have been a loving husband, but then that same person abandons the home, abandons that child, come to find out was having affairs with, and so the outside was inconsistent with the inside, and inconsistency always leads. Does anybody believe that at all? Biblically, the 12. I think the quintessential example of this is Judas. Judas, remember the upper room when Jesus said, one of you 12 is going to betray me. Now, it's a limited pool to guess, okay? I think it's him, or I think it's him. It might be him. You would think that every one of them would say, boy, it was Judas. I know it was Judas. Boy, I saw the telltale signs that Judas was a mess. No, Judas was doing what the disciples did. Judas was being where the disciples were, looking the part, playing the part, to the point when Jesus said, one of the 12 going to betray me. Not one of them, in fact, all of them said, is it I? Is it I? By the way, that's also one of the preventions of what I'm talking about when you have self-reflection. Is it I? Boy, is it I? And it also shows on the other side that someone can play the part, present themselves on the outside, totally different than what they are on the inside. And by the way, I think that tendency, that temptation, I think social media magnifies the disparity between what I am and what I present myself to be. As you see people post about, look at how happy I am and how perfect I am and how successful I am, they don't post their blunders. They don't post their blooper reel. They post their highlight reel. Look at how perfect and look at how successful and look at how happy, while carrying on the inside the imperfections and the failures and the heartaches on the inside. And so that disparity, that inconsistency, that hypocrisy, and the Lord puts three events side by side by side to teach us this truth. Put down number one. Notice first the examples of a lack of integrity. The examples of a lack of integrity. He takes us to a fig tree, and then he takes us to the temple, and then he basically applies it, or at least the example of the disciples. And so number one, the fig tree. First example, the fig tree, put down, it didn't produce what it promised. It didn't produce what it promised. 13, and seeing a fig tree afar off having leaves. From a distance, boy, it appeared perfect. From a distance, it appeared healthy. From a distance, hey, and it's a fig tree by its very name. Boy, it should be bearing figs. There should be fruit on that tree. Kind of like Christian. By our very name, we should be walking in a Christ-like fashion, reflecting and mirroring the life of the Lord Jesus Christ. But the rest of the verse, when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves. It was nothing but the accoutrements, the outside, the painted up on the outside and looking perfect on the outside, found nothing but leaves, for the time of the figs was not yet come. It didn't produce what it promised. Put down under that also, it didn't perform what it professed. It didn't perform what it professed. 13 again. And seeing the appearance, boy, it appeared to be what it presented itself as, and seeing a fig tree afar off, having leaves, boy, from a distance, having leaves, he came if haply he might find anything thereon. It looked outwardly like a fig tree. It looked outwardly like it had health. It looked outwardly, but it had the leaves of a fig tree, the appearance of a fig tree, but there was absolutely no fruit. Inwardly, something was wrong. And I think it's a lot like the Pharisees of the Bible time. Boy, the exterior was perfect. And in fact, Jesus, the descriptor he gave about them was, you're like whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful without, but within are full of dead men's bones. Your outside and your inside are inconsistent. I think that's also why, was it John the Baptist or Jesus, when they came to be baptized, he said, bring forth fruit, meet for repentance. Bring forth fruit, and yes, but the outside looks perfect. You know the verbiage of it, and you know the style and the look of it, but within, inwardly. And so that fig tree, it didn't produce what it promised. It didn't perform what it professed. Perform what it professed. I think it's Titus that says, they profess that they know God. They profess that they know God, but in works, they deny him. How about Simon Peter as he's sitting around that fire outside of that judgment hall? 3 different times, 3 different people said, but you look like one of the disciples. You look like one of the 12. You look like one of them. And 3 times he showed that his inside wasn't consistent with, is everybody following me at all? As he cursed and changed his speech, as he flatly denied, boy, I'm not one of them. Boy, it didn't produce what it promised. It didn't perform what it professed. Again, we're talking about integrity and sincerity. And for that fig tree, verse 14, the Lord cursed it. And then in verse 20 and 21, dried up from the roots, it died. Basically, Jesus saying, boy, it's better to have the outside consistent with the inside, even if the outside's wrong, because at least then there's a consistency. And someone might say again, boy, that seems harsh, that seems overkill. Not when you realize that overarching theme, that underlying truth is sincerity, integrity, a genuineness. And so for the fig tree, first example, put down secondly, the temple, second example. For the fig tree, it didn't produce what it promised. It didn't perform what it professed. But then for the temple, its inside did not match its outside. Its inside did not match its outside. How many in here have ever been to Israel before? Anybody? I know there's several that have been to Israel. And seeing it from the Mount of Olives, that temple, and of course now it's the Dome of the Rock, but that platform on which the temple stood, and then comparing spiritual with spiritual, the scriptures, just understanding how magnificent that temple would have been. Just almost overwhelming as it presented spiritually the center of Jewish worship and the center of their faith and the place of atonement. And so the outside, when you see that, it's wow. The outside, when you see that, boy, it looks spiritual. But when Jesus was entering into it, the inside was carnal, material, even sinful. Look at the inconsistency, verse 15. And they come to Jerusalem, and Jesus went into the temple, and began to cast out them that sold and bought in the temple. So a lot of times when all of Israel would take that trek to the temple for be it Passover or the Day of Atonement, when they're offering sacrifices, a lot of times if it was a long trip, they would end up converting the cattle to cash. And then when they got to the temple, there was some that would have flocks for them to buy, and that business became a business. And that financial exchange ended up being faulty at the base, by people getting one over on, people basically financially stealing from, and that buying and selling and getting gain. Look at it. And Jesus went into the temple and began to cast out them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of money changers and the seats of them that sold doves. And so that second example, the temple, its inside didn't match its outside. For the temple, put down number 2, its motives did not match its mission. Its motives on the inside did not match its mission, what it stood for, and its mission was to honor God. Its mission was to be a house of prayer. By the way, much like us, Corinthians says, your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you, which ye have of God. You're not your own, for you're bought with a price. Therefore, glorify God. Therefore, glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. And so not only did the inside not match the outside, but also its motives didn't match its mission. The motive was getting gain. The motive was amassing for themselves the financial. 17. And he taught them, saying unto them, is it not written, my house shall be called of all nations the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves. A den of thieves. Don't forget, we're talking about integrity. Talking about being true blue all the way through. Say that with me. True blue all the way through. Say it with me. True blue all the way. Sincerity and genuineness and consistency. And if there's no consistency, there will be a collapse. For the fig tree, it didn't produce what it promised. For the fig tree, It didn't perform what it professed. For the temple, its inside didn't match its outside. For the temple, its motives did not match its mission. And I like the progression. Don't miss the progression. The dying of the fig tree. It's basically the Lord saying, boy, better for your outside to reflect the corruption that you have on the inside. That consistency, rather than pretending, rather than parading yourself as something that you're not, boy, having a consistency. And so it was unhealthy on the inside. And the Lord said, hey, better for it also to be unhealthy on the outside. But then for the cleansing of the temple, even better. Even better. Now that inconsistency, boy, that's the worst. And then if it's looks right outwardly, but is totally wrong inwardly, better to have both of them totally wrong, because then you'll start dealing with what's important rather than the pretend. You'll start dealing with what's important rather than how you present or parade in front of other people. Now the cleansing the temple, better even yet, the cleansing of the inside in order for there to be a consistency with the outside. I love the progression for the fig tree, unhealthy inside. Let's make it unhealthy on the outside so people can see the genuine, the sincerity, that transparency. But then the temple, oh, it looks beautiful on the outside. Hey, let's go ahead and clean it up on the inside. Let me say this. Cleaning up the outside first never leads to cleaning up the inside. In fact, cleaning up the outside first almost always only delays cleaning up the inside, because you got what you want. People think that you're presenting yourself to be. You're parading yourself as if you are. People are the applause of men, the praise of men, Matthew chapter 5. You have what you want, and so that delay of addressing the inside, but let me say this, cleaning the inside first always leads to cleaning up the outside. In fact, don't take my word for it. The Lord Jesus Christ, in the red words in your New Testament, said, cleanse first that which is within the cup. Cleanse first that which is, and it's talking about the Pharisees, the whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful to men without, but within are full of dead men's bones. And then he goes on to say, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, that the outside may be clean also. And so we have the fig tree, that inconsistency, that lack of integrity and sincerity. And then you have the temple, same way. The inside didn't match the outside. But then put down number 3, kind of an application, or maybe the third example of this is the disciples. The disciples. We didn't read this part, but look at verse number 21. Verse number 21. And Peter, calling to remembrance, saith unto him, when he sees that fig tree dead, gone, boy, it seems like overkill. Not if you understand the overarching theme. It seems like overkill. Not if you understand the underlying truth of being true blue all the way through. Look at it, 23. 21, whichever. And Peter, calling to remembrance, saith unto him, Master, behold, the fig tree which thou cursest is withered away. And Jesus answering saith unto him, have faith in God. Put down underneath that, the disciples, his doubt did not match his doctrine. His doubt did not match his doctrine. Hey, we're men and women of faith if you're a Christian, if you're a child of God. We're men and women of faith, and it's one thing to be called that. It's another thing to live like that. To live by faith, to have faith in God, to exercise that faith in your generosity and that faith and your priority of putting God first. Boy, his doubt did not match his doctrine. Again, 22, look at it. And Jesus answering saith unto them, have faith in God. For verily I say unto you that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, be thou removed and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt shall not doubt. I think a companion verse would be James 1. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And it's talking about this very thing, faith and doubt. Be thou removed, be cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass. He shall have whatsoever he saith or asketh. Therefore, I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. We could go through and show just example after example after example of the disciples not exercising their faith. Doubting in the storms, and doubting when they didn't have food, when there's needs, doubting. And the Lord puts that right next to that inconsistency of, if we're children of faith, hey, let's walk by faith. If we're children of faith, let's make sure that we exercise that faith. And so that third example, the disciples, his doubt didn't match his doctrine. Put down letter B, his forgiveness did not match his father's. His forgiveness did not match his father's. In 25, and when you stand praying, say that next word, forgive. 25, and when you stand praying, what's that next word? Forgive if ye have aught against any, that your Father also which is in heaven may forgive you your trespasses. As a Christian, we're forgiven. We're forgiven. Listen, as a child of God, boy, we're forgiven. How duplicit and hypocritical of us if we don't extend that forgiveness. Is anybody in here listening, getting this? Boy, that inconsistency. He forgave me, I don't forgive others. He forgave me, I don't forgive others. That duplicity, not having the inside matching the outside, and integrity, again, is being the same on the inside as we are on the outside. That sincerity is people seeing what you actually are as they're looking on the outside, because it reflects the inside. Genuineness, not having them in conflict. The fig tree didn't have it. The temple didn't display it. The disciples didn't exemplify it. They had a lack of integrity, a lack of a true genuineness, sincerity, even transparency. Let me put it this way. So I hope when you see me in the wild, out in the neighborhood, out in nature, when you see me out there, I hope I'm the same person that you see behind the pulpit. But I don't want to be one way out there and a different way in here. Now, where I have tendencies is long lines at the grocery store. Man, I have tendencies. And check it. That's more than 10 items. But anyway, check that. Or if someone steals my parking spot, boy, I don't want to act one way out there and a different way in here. I want to be true blue all the way through, because number two, the effects of a lack of integrity. The effects of a lack of integrity, a lack of sincerity, a lack of consistency. We already noted inconsistency always brings collapse. But then underneath us, put down, our future potential is crippled. Boy, if we don't have consistency, if we're not on the inside what we say we are on the outside, if we're presenting one thing on the outside, parading ourselves on the outside, but not that on the inside, our future potential is crippled. Look at 14. And Jesus answered about the fig tree and said unto it, no man eat fruit of thee here forever after. Future potential. Here forever after. Look at 20. And in the morning as they passed by, they saw the fig tree dried up from the roots. Boy, living a life like that, hypocrisy, a lack of integrity, sincerity, inconsistency, living a life like that will cripple your future, because eventually the inside will come out. Talking about our speech, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. Out of the abundance of the heart, that inside, my thoughts and what I think about someone, eventually, if you talk to someone long enough, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh, you listen to their words and you'll understand what's in their heart. That inconsistency. And when you have that, our future potential can be crippled. Put down number two, our family's prayer is canceled. Our future potential crippled, our family prayer canceled. Look at verse number 17. And he taught, saying unto them, is it not written, my house shall be called of all nations the house of prayer? The house of prayer. The house of prayer. But ye have made it a den of thieves. A den of thieves. You couldn't have a den of thieves and at the same time a house of prayer. Because if it's a den of thieves, you're going to be manipulating for finances, you're going to be cheating people for finances, then why would it be a house of prayer, praying to the Lord for finances? If it's a den of thieves, it will not be a house of prayer, and if it's a house of prayer, you'll be trying to push out any temptation, any tendency for it to be. We can't have spiritual contradictions in our lifestyle and also have a consistent walk with God. And again, is it Matthew chapter 5 where these are those that when they fast, they disfigure their face to be seen of men? You already have your reward. When you're doing their alms, when they're doing their alms, they sound the trumpet so everyone can see. They sound the trumpet so that everyone can see. To have praise of men, you have your reward. And when they pray, boy, they're not praying in a secret place, a quiet place, a out-of-the-way place. When they pray on the street corners. The street corners, when they pray, they don't pray any other time, but when they pray, they do so to be seen of men, presenting themselves, parading themselves. The outside looking one way, but the inside still being a mess. And let me say this, they put their energy in the public presentation, and that's all about popularity. Rather than personal devotion, that's where the power is. The power to have a changed life, the power to live your life holy unto God, to give glory to God, that private devotion, that when no one's watching, no one's seeing, rather than that public perception, public presentation, and that's all about popularity, and it's absolutely also obviously wrong. And so the effect of being true blue all the way through or not being, the effect of not having sincerity, the effect of not being genuine and having integrity, being the same on the outside as you are on the inside, our future potential crippled, our family prayer canceled. Put down letter C, our faith production is collapsed. Our faith production will be collapsed, because if there's inconsistency, there will be collapse. If there's inconsistency, there will be collapse. 23. For verily I say unto you, that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, be thou removed and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart. It's James chapter 1 I referenced. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like the wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. Let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Peter references this group as wells without water. Wells without water. It looks the part. It looks like it should be refreshing, but if there's bitterness inside of someone's spirit, that bitterness poisons everything about them, no matter how they present themselves to be. If there's bitter water on the inside, that bitter water will splash on the outside. Wells without water, as you go there for refreshment and find none. Boy, talking about that group. That group that doesn't perform what they profess and doesn't produce what they promise. Wells without water. And then in Jude, it calls it clouds without rain. Clouds without rain. And depending on where you live and how much rain you've gotten, a lot of times when it's a farming type community, boy, when those clouds are coming in, I mean, there's an anticipation that the crops are going to be watered, the harvest is going to be bigger because we're going to get the rain that these crops need. And boy, you're anticipating, you're watching, you can't wait for. And then if you're a farmer and you see that cloud pass over, Clouds without rain, disappointing. Wells without water, disappointing. Trees without fruit, incredibly disappointing. There's another testimony to this truth that we're talking about, and it sits 2.5 miles below the sea. It was built in 1912, one of the largest ships ever made, 40,000 tons. The length was almost 3.5 city blocks, 822 feet, almost 3 football fields. And on April of 1912, its maiden voyage, that ship that even God couldn't sink, the Titanic, that ship that even, it was dubbed, that even God couldn't sink. As it steamed along, because of its hubris, it wasn't paying attention to the warning signs, and then also because an iceberg, an iceberg, boy, there's only a small amount above water, talking about the allegory of what we're talking about here, but the danger and the destruction and how much damage can be done lies under the surface. So much of it lies under the surface. And in their hubris, they didn't turn around, they didn't turn back, they didn't take care. And in the hull of the Titanic, there was 16 airtight compartments. And the engineers said if any 4 of them took on water, that ship would still be able to sail. There'd be no problem at all. The only problem is if a 5th one begins taking on water, and then a 6th one begins taking on water. And when they struck that iceberg, it tore open 4 of those compartments, and the water pressure on the inside burst through that 5th one. The water pressure, as it began to sink, burst through that 6th one, and in a very short time later, on the night of April 14th, 1912, the ship that even God couldn't sink sank all the way to the ground. Within 2.5 hours, that unsinkable ship sank to the bottom of the ocean. And I kind of wonder how many Christians live that compartmentalized life where Sunday morning, that's God's time. Boy, I'm going to do right and worship and praise and interact. Boy, Sunday morning, God's time. But Friday night and Saturday night, boy, that's my time. Living a compartmentalized life. I'm going to be one way in front of church people, then I'm going to be a different way in front of my family, and then I'm going to be a different way in front of my kids, a different way at work. A lack of integrity, a lack of sincerity, and inconsistency, again, always leads to collapse. But if you're compartmentalizing, eventually the water pressure bursts through and bursts through and bursts through and bursts through. Wells without water, trees without fruit, clouds without rain. And so I think the order of our walking with Jesus is important before we begin walking like Jesus. Because walking with Jesus is what will cause you to walk like Jesus. And those that skip that first one, their Bible reading, the Bible is unopened, their prayer time, it's never visited, their inside, that sincere, that genuine, that inside, and until you walk with Jesus, you'll never truly be able to walk like Jesus. And so for the application, I just kind of want to, as a church, just think about a few things. I want to be, and I'll be the first one to say I'm not always that, but I want to be more concerned with what God knows me to be rather than what people think me to be. Okay, for you, just kind of pray that in, think that through. I want to be more concerned with what God knows me to be, live for an audience of one, what God knows me to be than what people think me to be. All too often we spend so much time social media presenting ourselves, parading ourselves, and then when we're in front of a certain group, want to make sure that they think that we are. I want to be more concerned with what God knows me to be rather than what people think me to be. It's the difference between character and reputation. Boy, we're all so concerned with our reputation, and someone besmirch our reputation, and character always comes before reputation. Boy, if I do what's right, if I live right, if I am walking with God on the inside, in the heart, in the secret places, then my reputation will take care of itself. And even if someone out of the blue tries to besmirch it, that blamelessness of starting on the inside, those accusations will not stick. Let me give you another one. If there is a disparity, I want it to be that I walk closer to God than people think that I do. Well, if there is a disparity, well, I want to make sure the inside is clean. The inside is clean. I want to be holier than what people perceive me to be. And so I want to make sure that I'm more focused on what God knows me to be than what people think me to be. And if there's a disparity, boy, I want the disparity not to be, boy, he seems so right and presents himself as so right. No, if there's a disparity, I would much rather it be that he walks closer to God than people realize. He lives holier on the inside than people think that he is. I want to keep that in the right order. I want to keep walking with Jesus always before walking like Jesus. And I want to spend more time in my private time, my secret place. The things that internally recalibrate me to be right with God. Boy, I want to spend more time here than I do presenting myself. Boy, I sure hope this made sense to someone. Boy, sincerity, integrity, a lack of duplicity, a lack of hypocrisy, genuineness. What was that phrase again? Being true blue all the way through. Say that, true blue all the way through.
Thanks so much for watching today's message. We just want to take a second and say that if God is stirring something in your heart right now, you are not alone in that, and we do not want you to navigate it by yourself. Whatever you are feeling, whatever questions are rising up, we want to come alongside you and give you the resources you need to grow in your relationship with Him. Your next step matters to us. If you have questions about a relationship with Jesus, baptism, or how to get connected here at Rosedale, the links are in the description, and we would genuinely love to walk that journey with you. If this ministry has been a blessing in your life, you can give generously by clicking the link in the description, and your support keeps the gospel going out every single week. Make sure to follow us on social media at Rosedale Baptist so we can stay connected throughout the week.